My name is Sam Carter, and I grew up believing that I was lucky to have a second chance at family. I was 6 when my world collapsed a rainy night, a screech of tires, and suddenly I was just a kid in a social worker's office, clutching a faded blue backpack and the old silver watch my dad had worn every day. That watch was my lifeline, my proof that my old life was real. After months bouncing between foster homes, I landed in Brighton Falls, Indiana. It was a quiet town, the kind where neighbors wave from their porches and everyone's business is common knowledge. I didn't have much, but I was used to that. All I wanted was a place to belong. Robert and Martha Carter seemed like a dream come true. They were warm, open, and genuinely happy to bring me home. Martha would kneel down and hug me every morning. Robert would ruffle my hair and ask about my day. For the first time since losing my real parents, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be my forever family. Those first months were the happiest I'd known. Martha read me bedtime stories, Robert taught me to ride a bike, and we made a little ritual out of baking cookies on rainy weekends. Sometimes, lying in bed at night, I'd wind up my dad's watch and listen to it tick, pretending it was a heartbeat connecting me to a world I'd lost. Then everything changed, though I didn't know it at first. The news came in spring Martha was pregnant. I remember the day she found out, tears of joy streaming down her face as Robert lifted her off her feet and spun her around. "You're going to be a big brother, Sam," she said, squeezing my shoulders. I smiled back, trying to catch their happiness, but deep down, something felt off. I didn't understand it then, but I would soon. When Olivia was born, she was perfect in their eyes. Blonde curls, big blue eyes, a laugh that could light up a room. The house filled up with new toys, pink blankets, and visitors who came just to see the baby. At first, I tried to help singing silly songs to Olivia, drawing pictures for her crib, even offering to feed her when Martha was tired. For a while, I felt important, like I was truly part of something. But that didn't last. Every conversation started to be about Olivia, her first smile, her first steps, her every little sound. When she cried, everything else stopped. When I needed something, it could wait. My birthday came and went with a small cupcake and a distracted happy birthday from Martha, who was busy cleaning up after Olivia's first tantrum. Robert missed it altogether. I told myself it was normal. Babies are a lot of work. Things would get better once Olivia grew older, but they didn't. By the time I was 8, I was more like a background character in my own house. Martha was always too tired for bedtime stories. Robert worked late or played with Olivia in the yard. Sometimes, Olivia would cry just to get my attention, then laugh when I tried to comfort her. She learned early that she could control the room. I did my best to be the good son. I cleaned, I studied, I stayed out of trouble, hoping they'd notice. But at home, I was invisible. I got used to eating alone at the kitchen table while Martha fed Olivia in the living room, cooing over every spoonful. I learned not to ask for help with homework because their eyes always darted to Olivia, who would whine if she wasn't the center of attention. Sometimes I'd catch Martha looking at me with a distant sort of fondness, like I was a family pet she didn't quite know what to do with anymore. Olivia grew fast, and so did her sense of entitlement. If she wanted something, she got a ton of discussion. I remember her 7th birthday like it was yesterday. She got a whole weekend at an indoor water park with all her friends, plus a mountain of presents. On my birthday that same year, I got a text from Robert at work and a single candle in a store-bought cupcake from Martha, who apologized for forgetting to wrap anything. "We've just been so busy," she said, not meeting my eyes. It hurt, but I tried not to show it. I told myself I could be happy for Olivia. I'd never had a little sister before, and I really wanted her to have the kind of childhood I dreamed about in foster care. So I became her shadow, carrying her backpack to school, cheering her on at soccer games, covering for her when she got into trouble. When Martha or Robert got mad at me, Olivia would just smirk from behind their backs. "You'll never be their real kid," she whispered once, her blue eyes sharp and cold. I pretended not to hear. By middle school, I realized I'd been replaced in every way that mattered. My room was the smallest in the house now, since Olivia wanted the big one for her art studio. My chores doubled, cleaning up after Olivia, helping Martha with the laundry, taking out the trash because Robert said I needed to earn my keep. Olivia, she just did as she pleased. She started borrowing my things without asking, first little stuff, like my markers and favorite books, then my clothes, then even my headphones and savings jar. When I'd confront her, she'd shrug and say, "Ask Mom if you want it back." Of course, Martha always took her side. "Olivia just looks up to you, Sam. Let her use your things." "She's your sister." Robert was even worse. "Don't make a fuss. Be a good example." So I stopped complaining and hid what little I had left that mattered to me, especially my dad's old silver watch. I kept it in a box taped beneath my bed, hoping Olivia would never find it. High school was my escape. I got a job at the local grocery store, and for the first time I had my own money Olivia couldn't touch. My best friend Matt lived a few streets over, and his parents treated me like one of their own. They invited me for dinner on weekends, cheered for me at my football games, even bought me a cake for my 16th birthday. It wasn't much, but it meant the world. Meanwhile, Olivia became even more popular and demanding. She got a brand new phone for her 13th birthday, then begged our parents for a car when she turned 16. She didn't care about grades, skipped classes, talked back, and still got everything she wanted. When I tried to talk to Martha about it, she just shook her head. "She's going through a phase, Sam. Don't worry about her." I realized, finally, that nothing I did would ever be enough not for them. I started focusing on my own life. I studied hard, saved every dollar, and dreamed of leaving Brighton Falls behind forever. But before I could escape, Olivia did something I'd never forgive. I was in my final semester of high school, counting down the days until I could leave for college. Olivia was almost 12, but she acted like she ran the house. She would stomp through the hallway demanding things, rolling her eyes at our parents, calling me loser or orphan whenever she was sure no one else was listening. Every year it got worse. She'd steal my books, my clothes, even the snacks I hid in my backpack for work. One afternoon, I came home and found her sitting on my bed with my favorite hoodie balled up in her hands. "It's not your color, anyway," she sneered, then dropped it on the floor and walked out. When I complained to Martha, she barely listened. "Olivia just wants to be close to you, Sam. She doesn't mean any harm." Robert would only add, "Stop making trouble, son." I learned to lock up everything I valued, especially my dad's old silver watch. That watch meant more to me than anything. I wore it on days when I needed courage, on the anniversary of my parents' accident, when I got my college acceptance letter. It was the one piece of my real family I'd managed to keep safe through everything. But then one evening, coming home from work, I noticed my door was slightly open. My stomach dropped. I tore through my drawers, then crawled under the bed. My secret box was gone. I sprinted to Olivia's room, barely knocking before bursting in. She was lying on her bed, scrolling through her phone, completely uninterested. "Did you take my watch?" I demanded. She looked up, shrugged. "I needed money for a new set of headphones. Sold it online last week." Get over it, it's not like you have a real family to remember anyway. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. I shouted for Martha, for Robert, and this time I didn't hold back. I told them everything, years of being pushed aside, ignored, blamed. Olivia rolled her eyes and said, "He's just dramatic. He can't handle being a nobody, but Martha and Robert didn't defend me. "It's just a watch, Sam," Martha said quietly. "Don't make this a big deal. Olivia's still a child." That night, lying in my empty feeling room, I knew I had nothing left to keep me there. No one was ever going to protect me, not from Olivia, not from anything. The next morning, I packed my bag, grabbed my acceptance letter, and left a note that simply read, "I hope Olivia gets everything she wants. I'm gone." I closed the door, walked down the street to Matt's house, and never looked back. Matt's family took me in without hesitation. They had a small house, always a little messy but full of laughter and warmth. Matt's mom insisted I eat dinner with them every night, and his dad gave me advice about surviving college, sometimes over a game of cards or while fixing something in the garage. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider. Those last weeks of high school flew by. I worked every extra shift at the grocery store, determined to show my gratitude and save every cent for college. On graduation day, Matt's parents cheered louder than anyone, hugging me like I was their own son. I scanned the crowd for Martha, Robert, or even Olivia, but none of them came. I told myself I was fine, but a piece of me ached for even the smallest sign that they cared. I moved into my dorm at Riverside University with nothing but my clothes, a couple of worn paperbacks, and my acceptance letter. The silver watch, my last real family treasure, was gone forever, but I told myself I couldn't dwell on the past. I focused on what was ahead, a fresh start, new friends, and a life that was finally my own. My roommate Jillian was easygoing and never asked too many questions. We bonded over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza. The campus felt huge and anonymous, which suited me. For the first time, nobody knew my history, and I could be whoever I wanted. A few weeks into the semester, I started working at the campus library. The pay wasn't great, but it covered the basics, and I liked the quiet. Most days I was too busy with classes and work to think about my old life. But every once in a while, I'd get a text from Olivia, always some petty taunt, or a blurry selfie with a new toy, or a message like, "Don't forget, you're the one who ran away." I stopped replying. I blocked her number. Sometimes I'd get emails from Martha Short, awkward updates about how Olivia's doing so well or how we miss having you around the house. I never answered those either. I kept my focus on studying, building something real for myself, refusing to be defined by a family who'd never really seen me. The only people who reached out with genuine care were Matt and his parents. They sent care packages, called every Sunday, and made sure I knew I had a place to go for the holidays. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I spent it at their table, feeling like maybe, just maybe, I finally had a home. Meanwhile, I sometimes heard about Olivia through the grapevine. She was still the center of attention, still getting everything she wanted. My parents posted pictures of her online winning some art contest, posing with a new bike, surrounded by friends at a birthday party. I felt a strange mixture of relief and bitterness. She had everything, and yet I wondered if she ever realized what she'd taken from me. It was easier, in a way, to believe she never would. Time passed faster than I could track. By my junior year, Brighton Falls felt like another universe, one I'd left behind for good. I kept my head down, worked hard, and did everything I could to prove to myself that I could survive on my own. There were rough patches, cold nights when I skipped dinner to pay rent, exams I thought I'd fail, and waves of loneliness that sometimes threatened to pull me under. But every time I wanted to give up, I'd remember where I came from and why I left. It wasn't all struggle. I found real friends, people who liked me for me, not for what I could do for them. There was Sophie, a girl from my chemistry class who laughed at my bad jokes and shared her notes without asking for anything in return. She introduced me to her family, who welcomed me at their table without hesitation. I got to see what a normal, loving home could be like, loud, chaotic, but full of care. On the rare occasions when my thoughts wandered back to Olivia and my old life, I tried to let the bitterness go. Still, there were reminders. Around my 21st birthday, I got a letter from Martha. It was the first real letter she'd ever sent me. She wrote about how family is forever, how Olivia was struggling in high school now, how maybe it's time you came home for a visit. I read it once, folded it up, and put it in a box at the back of my closet. Matt would ask me every once in a while, "Do you ever miss them?" I'd shrug, "Not really. I miss what I thought family was supposed to be." Meanwhile, word drifted to me through old friends still in Brighton Falls. Olivia's perfect world had started to unravel. She was skipping classes, failing tests, and fighting with Martha and Robert. Her friends changed every year, sometimes every month. She got her license, crashed 2 cars in less than a year, and started running up bills my parents couldn't pay. By the time Olivia was 17, she was infamous at school for partying, skipping class, and posting pictures of herself living a life none of us could afford. Robert tried to clamp down, but she just got sneakier. Martha defended her every time, saying she was just going through a phase. I saw all this from a distance. I felt bad for them, a little, but mostly I felt numb. I'd lost everything once: my home, my real family, my sense of belonging. Now I knew better than to go back, even if they begged. The more Olivia got, the more she wanted. She maxed out credit cards, sold off anything she could pawn, and got herself into debt with people she shouldn't have owed money to. My old room at the house slowly emptied out, first my books, then my trophies, even my old backpack. When a mutual friend texted me a photo of Olivia wearing my old varsity jacket at a party, I felt a strange mix of sadness and disgust. In those moments, I realized the biggest difference between us. She'd been handed everything and lost it all. I'd had nothing and built something real. By the end of college, I had a job lined up, a small apartment, and people in my life who actually cared. For the first time, I felt proud of the man I was becoming. But Olivia's story wasn't finished yet. Years slipped by. I settled into adulthood, working as an engineer in a city miles away from Brighton Falls. I built a new life for myself, one that was mine alone, friends who felt like family, a tiny but sunlit apartment, simple rituals that made me feel safe. Sometimes I'd still dream about my parents, their voices, their laughter, the old silver watch I'd lost long ago. But now the pain was softer, like an old scar. I kept in touch with Matt and Sophie, sometimes seeing their parents on holidays. Every so often, I'd get a letter from Martha or Robert, always a guilt-laced message about missing their son, sometimes even asking for money to help Olivia get back on her feet. I never sent anything. I couldn't afford to give away the hard-won piece I'd found. Olivia's life spun further out of control. She dropped out of college after a semester, racked up more debt, and bounced from job to job. I'd hear stories from mutual friends how she'd burned every bridge, how even Martha and Robert couldn't keep bailing her out. One day, I got a message from an old classmate. "Did you hear? Olivia's working as a janitor now. She's living in a rundown apartment across town." I felt a sting of pity, but it faded quickly. Olivia had spent her whole life taking and taking, believing she was owed everything. She'd sold the only thing I had left of my parents and laughed while she did it. For years, she'd had all the love, all the attention, all the chances in the world. And yet, when it was all gone, she had nothing and no one left. Late one rainy evening, I heard a knock on my door. It had been years since I'd seen anyone from my old life, so when I opened it and saw Olivia, hair stringy, eyes hollow, clothes wrinkled, I barely recognized her. She didn't say anything for a long time, just stood on the threshold, shivering. Finally, she spoke. "I have nowhere else to go." We sat at my kitchen table in silence, the hum of the fridge the only sound. She stared at her hands, and I saw the person she might have been, a scared, lonely kid, desperate for love. "I messed up, Sam," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I lost everything, Mom and Dad. They moved to Florida. They won't even answer my calls anymore. I'm sorry for everything. I know you probably hate me." I took a breath, searching her face for the cruel girl I remembered. All I saw was regret and exhaustion. "I don't hate you, Olivia," I said quietly, "but I can't save you either. I spent too long trying to be enough for everyone else. I need to live my own life now." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I get it. I wish I'd seen what I had before it was gone." I offered her a meal, a couch to sleep on for one night, and the number for a shelter that could help her. In the morning, she was gone, left behind a note. "Thank you for giving me one last bit of kindness. I hope you find the happiness I never did." As I watched the sunrise from my window, I felt something uncoil inside me. Not revenge, not triumph, but release, a final letting go of a lifetime's worth of longing for a family that never really existed. I chose to move forward. I kept building the life I'd fought for, surrounded myself with people who valued me, who saw me for who I was. I forgave Olivia, not for her, but for myself. Sometimes I walk by pawn shops or antique stores and glance at the old watches in the windows. I still wish I had my dad's watch, but I know now it was never about the object. It was about holding on to hope and about learning to let go. In the end, I found what I'd always wanted, a place to belong, a sense of peace, and the freedom to write my own story, one where love is earned, not taken for granted, and where family is chosen, not given by chance. And Olivia, she became a cautionary tale in our hometown, a reminder that you can have everything and lose it all unless you learn what truly matters before it's too late.